Thank you, Professor, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for being here today. I'm very excited to share with you my research on menstrual stigma and assessment of the Sri Lankan perspective with a focus on individuals with advanced level education or higher. So let's start by setting the stage. So let's start by setting the stage. So what is menstrual stigma? It can be defined as like a mark that brands a menstruating person's body or character as like damaged. And this can be also seen in like a patriarchal context as something that reinforces the lower social status assigned to feminine. So the main objectives of this study is to understand the dynamics of menstrual stigma in Sri Lanka through the beliefs and responses and experiences of the participants. And there are also three sub-research objectives. First is to understand what stigmatizing beliefs about menstruation the participants hold. The second is to understand how stigma shapes the way in which the participants experience and engage with menstruation. And the third is to understand how the participants perceive menstrual stigma and how they respond to it. So, thank you. Let's talk a bit about how the study was conducted. So, I employed a mixed methods approach. Data was collected through 100 questionnaires and 10 interviews. And the data was analyzed qualitatively using thematic analysis and quantitatively using Excel and Startup. The population of the study is Sri Lankans with education of advanced level or higher, and the sampling method was convenient sampling, and as for the sample composition, it was representative of all 9 provinces of the country, and 72% were male, 28% were female, and 88% were below the age of 40, the rest were above the age of 40, and of the sample, 98% held either a university degree or a professional qualification. The others had advanced levels. And out of the respondents, 85% answered in English and the rest in Sinhala. Just 2 things to note here. One, the findings cannot be generalized to the entire population without limitations. One is because the sample size is quite small, and also because it's not representative of all demographic features of the population. And 2, the Tamil language not being used in data collection is a limitation of this study. So that brings us to the results of the study. So before I begin, just want to note that they're arranged in 3 sections that are in line with the 3 research objectives mentioned earlier. So we'll start first research objective, which was to understand what stigmatizing beliefs the participants hold. So what we found here is that while a majority, that's 71%, believe that it's acceptable for men to buy menstrual products, there are gender differences in this view. That is, slightly more males, 75%, hold this view compared to females, 69%. So this actually indicates a slightly more open view among the males than the female. Conversely, more women, 88%, than men, 79%, believe topics such as access to menstrual products should be discussed in public. Then in another question, when asked if it's acceptable for a menstruating person to be more angry or sad or moody, what we found is that 33% of the male respondents said no, while only 13% of the female respondents said the same thing. This possibly indicates a higher level of sympathy or understanding for menstruating people among the female respondents. Then on views about celebrating menarche or the first menstruation also varied across gender and age. So those over 40, 16% of them favor menarche celebrations more compared to those under the age of 40. That's 11%. Then more males, 18%, than females, 10%, support menarche celebration. So this is kind of significant given that almost twice as many males than females support this usually traditional view of menstruation, which is essentially a female experience. So moving on to the second part of the results here, which is on how menstrual stigma shapes the way in which participants experience and engage with menstruation. So to further understand like the self-perception and the experience of a person going through menstruation, we asked about self-consciousness. So what we found was that 43% of the participants said that they feel highly self-conscious during menstruation. 50% said that they feel somewhat self-conscious. Similarly, when asked how they feel in terms of attractiveness during menstruation, 32% reported feeling unattractive. A third finding here is that almost half the women, that's 49%, said that if they need to be excused from a social situation due to something like menstrual cramps, they won't cite the actual reason and will instead give a different reason, such as a headache. There's one more finding here, that's that comfort discussing the topic of menstruation also varies across gender and age. So females reported feeling more comfortable talking about it, any other females, over even a male medical professional. And even for the male respondents, the most comfortable group for them are female medical professionals. And in general, older respondents reported more comfort than younger respondents in talking about this topic. So that brings us to the third part of the findings, which is on how the participants perceive menstrual stigma and how they respond to it. So here we looked at whether participants believe menstrual stigma to be prevalent in Sri Lankan society. So what was found is that 53% overall feel it's prevalent, but here also there is a generational disparity. That is 58% under 40 believe it to be prevalent compared to only 16% above the age of 40. Similarly, there is a gender disparity also here, more females than males believing it to be prevalent. Finally, we see that 13% of respondents associated the word or the concept of menstruation with the word pure, which is interesting because traditionally in most Sri Lankan societies, menstrual blood has been seen as impure. So in a context where 53% of a group feels menstrual stigma is prevalent, 13% saying that it's also pure could be an incident of them resisting the existing menstrual stigma. So in conclusion, while most questions generated overall positive responses, there are gender and age disparities among those who don't hold typically positive or non-stigmatizing belief. And further interviews with medical professionals suggest a decrease in stigma due to internet access. However, some of the younger professionals I spoke to still see this as an important issue. So older participants perceive reduced stigma while younger ones recognize its persistence, and so this could reflect a generational or societal change. Coming on into the recommendations of the study, interventions should enhance internet-based education, promote open discussion among youth, and support movements normalizing menstruation. And this should be done while giving consideration to age and the gender of beneficiaries, as we have seen some differences there, to effectively bridge the perception gap and improve the menstrual health discourse. Thank you very much.